Hey, what is going on, FPG fam? Further here, and welcome back to another Snowbreak video. So the question I get the most about this game is, does the pity carry over to the next limited banner? And indeed, the pity does carry over to the next limited banner, just in case you were unaware. Now, the second question I get the most outside of that one is 5-star Fritia Hush. Is she a good operative? Should I use my SSR selector on her? And so I want to talk about that today. I was fortunate enough to get this operative very early on, and I've been using her extensively ever since to gain as much knowledge as I possibly can on her, so that way I can share it with you all and give you my advice and recommendation, as well as provide you what her kit does and talk about her gameplay. So hopefully you get some value from today's video, and hopefully I can stop the Fritia Hush slander that I see going around the community. Anyways, let's go ahead and let's jump straight into it. We're going to talk about her kit first. So she is a thermal assault rifle user. Her standard skill is a very fun one. It throws a chain, which I consider it to be more like a baton, it looks like. She throws it in front of her. It travels a great distance. I was very surprised by the distance that it travels. It hits an enemy and explodes and does thermal damage, but furthermore, it has CCing capabilities, meaning it can gather 4 targets together at most, and it can keep them there while it explodes. So it's very nice in that aspect as well. Moving on from there, her support skill is probably what people will find to be the most valuable. It's a really good one. So essentially, Fritia will go ahead and put what they call the Fire God Protection on the active character on the field, and she'll apply 5 stacks of that for 10 seconds. So when hit, the operative loses 1 stack of that Fire God Protection, and Reverse Flame is triggered. Now, damage taken for the hit is reduced by 50%, and surrounding targets are burned, dealing thermal damage. It's essentially a shield that can absorb damage and reduce the damage you take by 50%, and it can also do damage to surrounding targets or enemies. So it's a very good support skill. Now, moving over to her ultimate, this is where the slander comes into play, but it is warranted, I'm not gonna lie. She essentially does a solar beam, but she's stuck in place. She cannot move, which is unfortunate, and she can be interrupted from this. It does some pretty good damage, but it has some glaring flaws that hopefully can be corrected, or at least rebalanced or updated. Maybe they can give her a nice shield to where she can't be interrupted and she takes far less damage, the damage reduction. Essentially, if she gets like the Fire God Protection on her while she's doing the ult, that would be great. Funny enough, they did put that within her manifestations. That probably should have just been something that was standard within her ultimate. We'll go more into manifestations here in just a second. But there are some glaring flaws with this ultimate. So the slander against it is warranted, but there are some situations to where it can be really good. You just have to set it up properly. This is an ultimate where you can't just throw it out and you can be careless about it like you can with other operatives that are in the game. This is more of a setup ultimate because you can't move and because you can be interrupted. So what I like to do is I like to use her standard skill with the Neuronic unlock where it stuns. You can see it right here. Like to stun the enemy, then group them up with Kaguya and her support skill. And while they're grouped up and stunned, then go ahead and use this ultimate and make sure they're all gathered together in one spot. So, and do the maximum amount of damage. So there's setups that can be done, and she can be put into some really good situations, and this can melt boss's health. But once again, there's some very glaring flaws with this ultimate, and I think that's what brings Fritia Hush down, I guess, on tier list, if you would put it that way. Or she just is not as good in a lot of people's eyes because of this ultimate. So you have to keep that in mind. Nonetheless, I'm going to go ahead and stick by it. It's a massive solar beam. It's one of the cooler looking ultimates in the game, so that deserves some points, right? Moving on from there, we got her passive. Fritia's U energy consumption decreases by 7%, decreasing by an extra 2% for each 100 alignment index, increases full squad's max U energy by 20. So this is a pretty good passive. What you're going to start to learn after talking about her kit and her manifestation is that the developers seem like they wanted to cater everything around her ultimate, which is super unfortunate because of the flaws that we just mentioned about her being interrupted and not being able to move. If those things were rebalanced or updated to where she had ignore interruption, or she had damage reduction, or if she was able to move within her ultimate, then it would all make sense why everything would revolve around her ultimate, because it would be one of the best ultimates in the game. But unfortunately it's not. So there's just some very interesting moves that were made here in the development of Fritia Hush. It just seems like the development team might have missed the mark when it comes to the kit of Fritia Hush and what they were trying to accomplish, but I digress. Let's go over to the manifestations. This is where you start to really see how they were trying to cater everything around the ultimate. After you start unlocking some manifestation, The first one, M1 Lasting Flame, can be continuously unleashed, but it consumes more and more U energy as it does so. The second one, M2, when unleashing Lasting Flame, Fritia obtains 1 stack of Fire God Protection every half second. This would be fantastic if this was just base built within the ultimate in of itself. The Fire God Protection is her support skill that reduces the damage that she takes, and the ultimate is where she needed that the most. So I just don't understand why they put it on M2, because that's going to be very difficult for a lot of people to get, and it could take quite some time to farm that out. But once again, I digress. You can see I'm a little passionate about Fritia Hush because she is a really cool character, and I really do adore her, and I've been maining her, and she's a lot of fun. She just has some rebalancing that needs to be done, or they just missed the mark. Anyways, when Lasting Flame hits a burning target, recovers 0.3 U energy, once again catering to her ultimate. Everything is catered to her ultimate when it comes to the manifestation. Increases damage of Lasting Flame per time to 27% of Fritia's attack. It just allows the ult to hit harder. And then for each additional stack of Fire God Protection, increases damage reduction by 5%, which is her support skill, which is really nice. So all in all, the manifestations are good. It's just some of them felt like there should have been just in her base kit in of itself. Moving on to her Neuronics. So her Neuronics are really good as well. Once again, most people are probably going to play Fritia as a support. I play her main DPS, but most people would play her support, and I would probably recommend you play her as support if you're going to obtain her, or if you do have her, build her more of a support, because she's a good DPS, but she's an even better support operative. So let's take a look at the first one. This is essentially going to increase the damage of her standard skill by applying the burning effect when the standard skill explodes on the target, and it deals 10% of Fritia's attack as thermal damage every 0.5 seconds for 5 seconds. So it's like a DOT, which is really nice. Then you have the support one right here. Fire God Protection provides an additional iron body effect. Now, I'm not entirely too sure what iron body effect means. It just sounds like an additional shield that she receives on top of the Fire God Protection. But if you know what that is, you can let me know in the comments down below. I'm just not entirely too sure. They didn't go into any further detail here. Moving on to the third one, this is for her ultimate. As you can see, I unlocked this one. When Lasting Flame repeatedly hits the target, final damage bonus is further increased to 3%. That's just going to allow her ult to hit harder. And then I unlocked this one right here, which I thought this was nice because of the CC. After using standard skill, the explosion applies stunned effect to target for 3 seconds. So the way I like to do this is because it can group 4 enemies together. I like to do it when the enemies are running towards you, the mobs. You can then group them up, and then they get stunned so they can't move, and then you pop ult, and it just does a lot of damage, and it just sets up some really fun and nutty encounters with the enemy that you can really take advantage of. So I do like that one in particular. Now the fifth one here, Fire God Protection, will remain after all stacks are consumed, but its damage absorbed effect decreases to 25%. I think this one is pretty busted. Once again, you should be building her probably more support, and this one is really good because you're not going to lose the Fire God Protection. It's just going to decrease the amount. Instead of 50%, it's going to be 25%, but it's still going to remain there. So that's still good damage reduction in of itself. And then moving over to the last one, when using a thermal weapon, final damage dealt by Lasting Flame increases by 20%. So this one, of course, is a bit more niche because you have to have a thermal weapon, but essentially we all assume you're going to be using a thermal weapon on her whenever you do obtain one if you don't have one already. So this is going to be a given at some point in time. So those are her Neuronics. Once again, they're good, and once again, I think you should be building her more support. But if you want to have fun and go outside of probably what I would consider the meta, then DPS Fritia is a lot of fun. Once again, she is a good DPS. She can output damage, but I think she's an even better support, so that's probably the way that you should go. Now, my advice and recommendation when it comes to the SSR Selector, and if you should use it on Fritia Hush, I think you would only use it on her if you really like her and you really adore her like I do. If you don't, and you're just trying to go for meta and you're trying to decide who's the best one to go for, then my recommendation is to go for either Yao, Fenny, Marion Swift, or even Wild Hunt. It's not that Fritia Hush is bad, it's just that her ultimate holds her back. She has a very good ultimate, but there's just too many flaws to recommend this character as your SSR Selector. Once again, you would be better off going with a Fenny that can support the team and do massive damage herself. You'd be better off going with a Yao Winter Solstice because of the massive damage that she's able to do and how she hits like a truck. You have Marion Swift, who's a very good damage dealer and is probably only going to get better over time as you invest resources into her. And then you have Wild Hunt, who's going to get better over time as you invest resources into her. That's a given. And she has massive CCing capabilities that can set up some really nice team builds and encounters with doing massive damage. So I just cannot consciously recommend Fritia Hush to be used for your SSR selector. And that's me being as unbiased as possible. I think she's a phenomenal character. I think she has tons of potential. I think she offers so much to the team. But she's very good in a lot of different areas, but not a master of any. And hopefully that makes sense, right? So I really do adore this character. If you do manage to get her, let's say from the gacha in the standard pool, then build her up. She's going to do really well for your team. She's going to keep your team alive. You are able to take her out and she's able to do damage on her own. But that's the only time I would tell you to go ahead and get her, is if you just naturally get her through the gacha. And then build her up and she's going to be a really good character. But as far as your SSR selector, that's probably relegated to a different operative that you can get that's just probably going to perform a little bit better for you. Now, if she ever gets rebalanced or update, I'll let you guys know. And if that ever comes, then hey, we're Fritia mains, we're looking good. We're looking real good. Anyways, guys, I'm gonna go ahead and get on out of here. Hopefully this video helped. Hopefully you got some value from it, and I do appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you so much for all your support. Means the world to me. Remember to stand out, be different, have fun, go further beyond in everything that you do. My name is Cody. You call me further. I'll see you all next one. Bye, guys.